When Super Saiyan Blue first appeared, it was introduced as the next major milestone in Saiyan evolution. This wasn't just another transformation. It was portrayed as the perfect fusion of Super Saiyan and divine power, a form that surpassed Super Saiyan God and became the new benchmark for both Goku and Vegeta. Fueled by godly ki, Super Saiyan Blue represented a level of strength that seemed almost impossible for ordinary mortals to reach. At the time, it felt like the definitive transformation that would carry the Saiyans through the future of Dragon Ball. However, as Dragon Ball Super progressed, something unexpected began to happen. Instead of remaining the pinnacle of power, Super Saiyan Blue was gradually overshadowed. Every new arc introduced stronger opponents, more powerful transformations, and higher levels of strength that continued raising the series' power ceiling. Before long, the form that once symbolized divine might no longer felt like the ultimate trump card it was originally presented as. That isn't to say Super Saiyan Blue was weak though. On the contrary, it's still an incredibly powerful transformation. The issue is that Dragon Ball scaling evolved at such a rapid pace that even a form built upon godly power eventually became just another rung on the ladder towards even greater heights. Today we'll take a closer look at why Super Saiyan Blue seems surprisingly underwhelming by modern Dragon Ball standards, how the series gradually moved beyond it, and how a transformation that once represented the absolute pinnacle of Saiyan power eventually became another stepping stone in Goku and Vegeta's endless pursuit of strength, as well as the fact that it's pretty much been hated and possibly even over-hated, simply because it was misunderstood from its origin to where it's at now. Super Saiyan Blue is simply the shortened name for Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. It is a Super Saiyan transformation that combines the power of Super Saiyan with divine energy. In the world of Dragon Ball, God Ki is a special type of energy normally possessed only by divine beings, setting it apart from ordinary ki used by mortals. What truly defines Super Saiyan Blue, however, isn't just its raw increase in power, but the incredible level of ki control required to use it effectively. Rather than simply generating more energy, the form demands that every ounce of ki be utilized with maximum efficiency. The user must perfectly regulate their energy output using only the exact amount of power necessary for every movement, attack, and defense. Because of this precise control, Super Saiyan Blue minimizes unnecessary energy loss, preventing ki excess from spilling out of the body and dramatically improving overall efficiency. Goku and Vegeta first achieved Super Saiyan Blue during the events of Dragon Ball Super Resurrection F storyline after undergoing rigorous training focused entirely on mastering their ki. Instead of relying on traditional power-ups that released massive amounts of energy into their surroundings, they learned how to increase their strength while keeping all of that power contained within themselves. This specialized form of training is even shown during Dragon Ball Super, where both Saiyans gradually learn how to draw divine ki into their bodies for the very first time while refining their control over it. This concept of God Ki is fundamentally different from how characters traditionally become stronger throughout the series. Under normal circumstances, a fighter increases their strength by releasing large amounts of ki outside their body. As their energy radiates outwards, their physical power rises alongside it, making their growing strength obvious to everyone around them. God Ki operates under the exact opposite principle. Instead of releasing energy outward to empower the body, the user compresses and contains that energy internally. Rather than allowing ki to leak away, it is tightly controlled and concentrated inside the body, creating greater power through refinement instead of outward expansion. This compressed state eliminates the unnecessary energy leakage that normally accompanies conventional power-ups and transformations. This also explains one of God Ki's defining characteristics. It cannot normally be sensed by those who lack defined energy themselves. Since the user's ki is no longer radiating outward in the traditional way, other fighters are unable to detect it through normal means. What they can often perceive instead is the overwhelming pressure or presence created by the concentrated divine energy rather than the actual ki itself. To better understand why this works, it's important to remember how ki functions throughout Dragon Ball as a whole. Ki serves as the fundamental energy source possessed by living beings. Every person, animal, and fighter naturally contains ki within their body. Every ordinary human possesses it despite having little or no conscious control over it. Because most people cannot consciously manipulate their ki, they constantly leak small amounts of it without realizing it. This unconscious energy leakage effectively represents their natural physical strength and forms the basis for what scouters detect when measuring battle power. This is why back in Dragon Ball Z, scouters were capable of assigning numerical power levels to individuals. They weren't measuring some abstract concept of strength, but they were detecting the amount of ki naturally radiating from a person's body. A simple example is the farmer encountered by Raditz early in Dragon Ball Z. Even though he had no understanding of ki whatsoever, Raditz's scouter was still able to calculate his power level because the farmer continuously emitted ki unconsciously, just like every ordinary human does. In Dragon Ball, a person's battle power is directly tied to the strength of the ki they possess. Since ki acts as the energy that amplifies every aspect of a fighter's physical abilities, greater amounts of ki naturally result in greater battle power, while lower amounts produce weaker overall strength. This is why trained martial artists such as Goku, Tien, Yamcha, and other Earth fighters are capable of battling opponents that ordinary humans could never hope to challenge. Through years of discipline, they learn to consciously manipulate their ki and dramatically increase their physical strength, speed, and durability. This process is what the series calls powering up. By raising their ki higher and higher, fighters continue enhancing every aspect of their bodies until they eventually reach the limits of what they can safely contain. The greater the amount of ki stored within them, the heavier the burden becomes on the body. As a result, maintaining extremely high levels of power places increasing strain on their stamina and endurance. A useful comparison would be lifting progressively heavier weights in a gym. As the gym weight increases, the physical demand rises alongside it, causing fatigue to accumulate more quickly. In much the same way, raising one's ki grants tremendous increases in power, but it also taxes the body more heavily. God Ki, and by extension Super Saiyan Blue, seeks to solve this problem through absolute efficiency. Instead of wasting power through constant leakage, the user compresses and refines that energy internally, allowing them to achieve extraordinary levels of strength while maintaining far greater efficiency than traditional methods of powering up. Before the introduction of transformation multipliers, the primary method fighters used to become stronger in Dragon Ball was through powering up. Powering up is the process of gathering energy and amplifying ki within the body, allowing a fighter to temporarily enhance their physical capabilities and as a result increase their overall battle power. As a fighter raises their power level, every aspect of their combat ability improves. Their strikes become more powerful, their movements become faster, durability increases, and their overall effectiveness in battle raises dramatically. Simply put, the higher a character's power level becomes, the greater their physical performance in every category. A useful way to think about powering up is through the concept of continuous addition in mathematics. Rather than instantly multiplying a fighter's strength, powering up continuously adds more and more energy to the user's body, steadily increasing their battle power as additional ki is accumulated. In theory, the process itself has no defined upper limit. A Dragon Ball fighter can continue raising their ki to reach greater levels of power for as long as they are physically capable of doing so. The true limitation isn't the amount of ki that exists, it's the body's ability to withstand and contain it. As large amounts of ki are gathered, the burden placed on the user's body becomes increasingly more severe. The greater the energy being stored, the heavier the strain becomes, and eventually every fighter reaches a point where their body can no longer tolerate the stress of containing additional ki. Once that physical threshold is reached, they can no longer continue powering up and effectively reach their current full power. Reaching that level is only half the battle though. Maintaining it requires stamina. If a fighter lacks the endurance necessary to sustain an enormous concentration of ki, their stamina will steadily decline. As the stamina decreases, so does their ability to maintain their heightened battle power. Eventually, their power level begins to drop as exhaustion sets in. Because of this, a strong body is absolutely essential for effective ki control. The stronger and more durable a fighter's body becomes, the greater amount of ki can safely contain it. Likewise, the greater stamina allows that heightened level of power to be maintained for longer periods of time. In other words, physical conditioning and endurance directly determine how far a fighter can push their battle power and how long they can sustain it during combat. Although powering up provides a tremendous advantage in battle, it also comes with an important weakness. Accumulating large amounts of ki takes time. During the process of powering up, a fighter is vulnerable to being interrupted. An opponent can exploit this opening by attacking before the user's power reaches its intended level. Because of this, one of the most important aspects of ki control is learning how to raise one's power as quickly as possible. Highly skilled martial artists can increase their battle power almost instantly, while less experienced fighters require significantly more time. Failing to raise one's ki at a crucial moment can easily result in defeat. Regardless of how powerful someone may be, the physical body remains vulnerable without the protection and reinforcement that ki provides. A devastating attack landed before a fighter has properly powered up can result in severe injury, unconsciousness, or even death. This is precisely why mastering the speed and precision of powering up is such an important part of combat throughout the series. Back during the events of Dragon Ball Z, scouters were specifically designed to measure this increase in battle power numerically. Rather than simply estimating an opponent's strength, they analyze the amount of ki radiating from a person's body and translate that energy into a measurable battle power. This allowed Frieza's army and other users to accurately gauge how strong an opponent appeared at any given moment. The importance of ki becomes even clearer when comparing ordinary humans to the powerful alien warriors introduced throughout the series. For example, an average human possesses a power level of roughly 5, while someone like Nappa has an official power level of approximately 4,000. The difference in physical ability between the two is astronomical. A normal human's punch would barely inconvenience someone with Nappa's level of strength. However, the ability to consciously manipulate and amplify ki is what allowed trained martial artists to close their otherwise impossible gap. Fighters like Goku and the other Earth warriors use ki to dramatically enhance their physical capabilities, enabling them to battle opponents whose natural strength far exceeded that of ordinary humans. Without ki manipulation, confronting enemies of that caliber would be virtually impossible. As the series progressed, Dragon Ball introduced another major concept that fundamentally changed how characters gained power, which was multiplier. Unlike traditional powering up, which requires gradually accumulating more ki, multipliers instantly increase a fighter's strength based on whatever their current base power happens to be. This removes one of the biggest disadvantages of conventional powering up, which is the time required to gather energy. The first major multiplier introduced in the franchise was the Kaio-Ken, which debuted during the Saiyan saga of Dragon Ball Z. At the time, Kaio-Ken served as Goku's ultimate trump card. Rather than slowly increasing his battle power, Kaio-Ken instantly multiplied it, allowing Goku to bridge enormous differences in strength against opponents he otherwise could not challenge. It gave him the ability to temporarily compete with enemies whose natural power greatly surpassed his own. However, that incredible boost came with an equally significant drawback. Every increase in the Kaio-Ken multiplier places tremendous stress on the user's body. The higher the multiplier becomes, the more severe the physical damage grows. While traditional powering up is limited by how much energy the body can safely contain, Kaio-Ken effectively bypasses those natural restrictions by forcing the body to release far more power than it was originally capable of handling. In essence, Kaio-Ken pushes the body beyond its intended limits. A useful analogy is lighting a candle with an intensely large flame. The brighter the flame burns, the faster the candle melts away. Likewise, every increase in the Kaio-Ken multiplier dramatically accelerates the physical strain placed on the user's body. This explains why Goku, despite possessing an extraordinarily durable physique compared to an ordinary human, was only able to push the technique as far as Kaio-Ken times 20 during the battle against Frieza on Namek. Beyond that point, the physical damage possibly is too great for his body to withstand. Although Kaio-Ken eventually became less prominent as new transformations emerged, the concept it introduced remains central to the series moving forward. The idea of transformations acting as multipliers for a fighter's base power would continue throughout Dragon Ball Z, most notably with the introduction of the various Super Saiyan transformations, each of which built upon the same fundamental principle of multiplying a user's existing strength rather than simply adding to it. The original Super Saiyan forms function as a series of multipliers that amplified a fighter's base power. As each successive Super Saiyan form is unlocked, the multiplier associated with that transformation increases as well, resulting in progressively greater boosts in battle power. Unlike the Kaio-Ken, however, the Super Saiyan forms achieve this increase without directly damaging the user's body. Rather than inflicting physical destruction through forced energy output, Super Saiyan primarily places an enormous burden on the user's stamina. The transformation continuously drains energy while it's active, making the endurance the primary factor that determines how long the form can be maintained. This is one of the major reasons the Super Saiyan transformations gradually replaced Kaio-Ken as Goku's primary method of increasing his strength. Kaio-Ken provided an incredible multiplier, but it came at the cost of severe physical damage. The Super Saiyan forms, on the other hand, offered a great increase in power while shifting the drawback away from the bodily injury and towards stamina consumption. Although they were still extremely taxing, they were far more practical in prolonged battle. Conceptually, the Super Saiyan transformation built upon the same foundation as powering up, but they accomplished it differently. Traditional powering up follows an additive model, gradually increasing a fighter's battle power by gathering and amplifying more ki over time. The Super Saiyan transformations instead operate through multiplication, instead multiplying the user's existing base power. Despite this difference, both systems ultimately share the same limitation, which is the physical body. Regardless of how large the multiplier may be, a transformation is only as effective as the body using it. If a fighter lacks the physical durability or stamina required to sustain a higher Super Saiyan state, they either will not be capable of reaching that transformation or they'll be unable to maintain it before long. This mirrors the mechanics of traditional powering up. A fighter may be capable of gathering tremendous amounts of ki, but once fatigue sets in, they can no longer sustain that level of power. Likewise, a Super Saiyan transformation can only be maintained for as long as the user's stamina allows. Because of this, Goku spent years relentlessly training his body, not simply to become physically stronger, but to continually increase his stamina and endurance so that he could withstand the escalating energy requirements of each new Super Saiyan transformation. Eventually, Goku's stamina reached an extraordinary level, that he became capable of combining two separate methods of increasing his strength simultaneously. Rather than relying exclusively on transformation or powering up, he could utilize both at once. This method is often referred to by most people as the hybrid approach. The concept behind this hybrid technique is straightforward. A fighter first multiplies their base power by transforming into a Super Saiyan state. Then, after receiving that multiplier, they continue powering up even further by adding additional ki on top of the transformed state. In other words, the transformation provides the multiplication while powering up continues adding more energy afterward. And the result is even greater increase in battle power, further enhancing every physical attribute including strength, speed, durability, reaction time, and sensory perception. However, this enormous increase in power comes with an equally significant drawback. Combining transformation and powering up simultaneously places tremendous stress on the body. The fighter must endure both the stamina drain caused by maintaining the transformation and additional strain of continuously gathering more ki. Few characters possess the endurance necessary to tolerate this level of physical exhaustion for an extended period. This is why only exceptional warriors such as Goku and Vegeta are capable of using this method effectively. Their years of training have given them stamina needed to withstand the immense physical stress generated by combining both systems of power amplification. Even so, the hybrid approach rapidly depletes the user's stamina and their ki reserves, making it an extremely demanding technique to sustain. Another consequence of using this method is the tremendous amount of energy released into the surrounding environment. When a fighter transforms and continuously powers up beyond that transformation, massive amounts of ki begin bursting outward from the body. Throughout Dragon Ball, this is commonly visualized through powerful shockwaves, floating debris, violent winds, cracking electricity, and surrounding rock levitating into the air. This uncontrolled release of energy often creates collateral damage across the battlefield. At the same time, this continued outflow of energy produced another disadvantage. Because so much ki is constantly radiating away from the user's body, a significant amount of energy is effectively wasted. This not only accelerates stamina loss, but also makes the fighter's battle power less obvious to anyone capable of sensing ki. Their overwhelming energy becomes impossible to hide as it continuously pours into the environment. Although this tremendous energy output dramatically increases the fighter's combat capabilities, it also causes unnecessary fatigue due to the constant loss of ki. If the battle drags out for too long, this excessive energy consumption can exhaust the user, forcing them out of their transformation and leaving them vulnerable. It's also important to remember that this continuous ki leakage exists separately from other techniques that require additional energy expenditure. Abilities such as firing ki blasts to consume their own amount of ki depending on the strength of the attack, likewise techniques like Bujutsu, which is flight, and the Mafuba and numerous other special abilities all require additional energy before the constant ki radiating from their transformed fighters' bodies. When all of these sources of energy consumptions are combined, it becomes easier to understand just how much stamina Dragon Ball characters expend during combat. This also helps explain why fighters usually require battle powers measured in the millions or even hundreds of millions to sustain these incredible levels of combat while repeatedly transforming, powering up, flying, launching energy attacks, and everything of that nature. Ultimately, both powering up and the Super Saiyan transformations are built upon the same principle, releasing increasingly large amounts of ki which allow fighters to dramatically enhance their battle power. The more energy they're capable of drawing upon and utilizing, the stronger they become. However, increasing that energy output also comes at a cost. Releasing massive amounts of ki steadily drains both energy and stamina. If enough fatigue accumulates, maintaining the transformation becomes impossible, causing the fighter's power to rapidly decline. Super Saiyan 3 serves as one of the clearest examples of this concept. Although the transformation provides an enormous increase in power, it burns through stamina at an incredible rate due to the tremendous amount of ki constantly radiating from the user's body. As Goku's stamina diminishes, maintaining Super Saiyan 3 becomes increasingly difficult until he can no longer sustain the transformation at all. Once the level of exhaustion has been reached, simply attempting to transform again or power up further does little good. Without sufficient stamina remaining, the body is no longer capable of supporting the enormous energy demands required by the transformation, preventing the fighter from regaining that level of power until they have recovered. The clearest example of this limitation is Goku's struggle to transform back into Super Saiyan 3 during his battle with Kid Buu. After exhausting so much stamina, his body simply couldn't sustain the transformation again. No matter how much power he wanted to assess, fatigue had already pushed him beyond his physical limit. This perfectly illustrates one of the core drawbacks of Dragon Ball Z's traditional power system, where overwhelming strength comes at the cost of rapidly draining both stamina and ki. Everything about that philosophy changes once Dragon Ball Super introduces God Ki though. Unlike conventional power-ups, God Ki doesn't rely on violently releasing energy outside of the body to increase strength. Instead, the user suppresses and compresses their ki internally, allowing their power level to rise while keeping the energy perfectly contained. Rather than producing explosive shockwaves throughout uncontrolled ki output, the transformation creates an overwhelming sense of pressure around the user. That doesn't mean the surrounding remains completely unaffected though. When the amount of God Ki being compressed inside the body reaches an extreme high level, as seen with Super Saiyan Blue, the sheer pressure generated can still devastate the environment. Powerful gusts of wind, crushing force, and immense atmospheric pressure radiate from the user despite very little ki actually leaking out. That internalized method of using ki is what makes God Ki fundamentally more efficient than traditional ki amplification, because the energy is carefully controlled instead of constantly escaping the body with virtually none of it wasted. Every ounce of ki is directed exactly where it's needed, allowing the user to maximize their strength while maintaining extraordinary precision. Instead of relying on an overwhelming burst of energy, God Ki emphasizes perfect efficiency and complete control. This was exactly what Goku and Vegeta learned during Whis' training. Rather than powering up the traditional Dragon Ball way by allowing tremendous outputs of ki to erupt their bodies, Whis taught them how to continuously increase their strength by preventing the energy from escaping at all. The focus became absolute ki control instead of raw ki output. That training completely redefined how they fought. By mastering the ability to elevate their power without leaking ki, they surpassed the traditional methods of powering up that existed throughout Dragon Ball Z. The culmination of the training was the birth of Super Saiyan Blue, a transformation built upon perfect ki control instead of an uncontrolled power release. Of course, that incredible efficiency comes with a significant drawback though as well. Super Saiyan Blue places an enormous burden on the user's stamina. Maintaining such flawless precision while constantly suppressing an overwhelming amount of defined energy is physically and mentally exhausting. In many ways, its stamina consumption may even rival or potentially exceed that of Super Saiyan 3 simply because every moment requires absolute concentration and perfect control. Despite the drawback though, the trade-off is unquestionably worthwhile because of how massively it increases the power.